What if the biggest benefit of drinking less isn't fewer hangovers? Back when I was trying to get my drinking under control, I just wanted to stop waking up feeling awful. I wanted more energy, less shame and regret, maybe to lose a few pounds. I had no idea about how much sobriety would really change my life, and that's what today's episode is about. What becomes possible for you down the line if you make one different choice today. You're listening to How to Drink Less, and I'm your host, Adriana Cloud. Whether your goal is to cut back, take a break, or quit drinking for good, this podcast will help you stop drinking on autopilot, learn how to manage cravings, and feel fully in control around alcohol. It's easier than you think. Listen on to find out how. Hi everyone, thank you for tuning in for another episode. It's a very special one today because today I am 2,000 days sober. It's kind of a staggering number. That's 2,000 hangovers I never had. 2,000 mornings I woke up with a clear head and without regret. 2,000 days when I showed up to my life fully present. And even after all of this time, it doesn't get old how good this feels. I was just talking to my friend Tracy about this yesterday. She and I met at the start of this journey 5.5 years ago, and we basically got sober together. And we were talking yesterday about how grateful we still feel every day to have our mornings back and to have our lives back, frankly. It still feels like a miracle, especially on weekends to me, that I can wake up before 7 a.m., not because I have to, but because I want to, and because I've gotten a decent night's sleep, and I can have a leisurely coffee and not rush, and I can go for a run, I can clean, I can do some work on my business, and then it's only noon, and I still have the whole Saturday ahead of me. Whereas back in the day when I was drinking, I wouldn't even be out of bed before noon, and I would definitely not be going for a run or doing anything productive at all because I would be hungover and feeling sorry for myself, which, as you might imagine, is not very motivating. And I have to tell you, this life I have right now, this life that I have built for myself in the past 6 years, it is not what I expected at all. Back in June 2020, when I downloaded my first Sober Counter app, I had no idea any of this was even possible. Back then, I thought I was just getting my drinking problem under control. I had known for a while that I was drinking too much, and I finally got to the point where I was tired of feeling like shit and hating myself. I thought that if I could get my drinking under control, I might feel better and lose some weight. I was so fed up with how much headspace alcohol was taking up. I was constantly thinking about alcohol, even when I wasn't drinking. I thought about whether I have enough alcohol in the house, and when would I allow myself to pour the first glass of wine that evening. If I was meeting other people, I wondered if they would notice how much I was drinking, and if they were maybe talking behind my back about my drinking. I wondered why I couldn't drink normally when others around me seemed to be able to stop after just a couple of drinks like it was no big deal. I wondered if I was an alcoholic. I thought I had to figure out how to moderate, otherwise I would be forced to give up drinking completely. And back then, that was the worst case scenario I could imagine, that I would have to stop drinking. Sobriety sounded awful to me. I thought I would be bored for the rest of my life, and that my friends won't want to hang out with me anymore, and I believed that I would just have FOMO for the rest of my life. Back then, what I was really focused on was the behavior. That's what I was trying to change, how much I drank and how often. And the benefits I was looking forward to were quite short-term. Things like more energy, no hangover, maybe losing some weight, and feeling less ashamed of myself. But what I got instead was so much better. Here are the real gifts of sobriety. First of all, time. Of course, there's the actual time spent drinking. I used to go out to the pub most nights, and then I would often continue drinking when I got home. So probably I spent 20-30 hours every week drinking. That's like a part-time job right there. And then there's the time spent thinking about drinking. The time negotiating with myself about whether I would open the second bottle of wine, when I would be able to drink, how much, and all that. and I got all that time back. I don't think about alcohol anymore. I don't negotiate with myself. I don't spend energy deciding whether tonight is a drinking night or how much I'm allowed to have or whether I've gone too far and whether I need to apologize to someone because of something that I might have said last night. I cannot tell you all the brain space that has freed up for me. All that mental chatter about alcohol is gone, and the freedom I've got instead is truly priceless. I was just talking to a client about this the other day. What would you spend your time thinking about if you were no longer obsessively thinking about alcohol every day? What could you put your energy towards? What could you create if you weren't wasting hours worrying about whether you can stop at 2 glasses of wine tonight at the neighbor's gathering rather than finishing the bottle? Second of all, sobriety gave me the gift of being present and remembering everything. Like I often say, when you numb the bad, you also numb the good. So instead of adding to the fun, alcohol actually diminishes your capacity to feel pleasure. And when you stop drinking, all of that comes back. You can enjoy the fancy dinners out or the cuddles on the couch in front of the TV. You remember what you did on your holiday. You remember the conversations you had. You learn how to experience real joy and to create real memories. Third of all, sobriety helped me to expand my life in so many ways. Since I quit drinking, I completely changed careers. I used to be a book editor, but early on in sobriety, I decided to retrain as a coach and hypnotist, and I built a coaching practice from scratch. It's amazing what becomes possible when you finally have the energy and the focus and the self-belief to pursue what matters to you. And I need to add, when you have the money to invest in yourself, that's important too. I used to spend so much money on alcohol, but the past 6 years, I spend that money on much better things, like trainings and holidays and fun experiences with the people that I love. I also rediscovered parts of my life that I had lost in my worst drinking days, like writing poetry again. And I am close to having a complete poetry manuscript, and that is super exciting. And by the way, I don't really talk about this on the podcast, but in addition to my clients who want to drink less, I also coach writers on how to overcome writer's block, procrastination, self-doubt, how to reconnect with the joy of writing and reignite their creativity. And none of this would be possible if I wasn't sober. Sometimes I think about all the things that wouldn't exist if I'd kept drinking, all the opportunities that would have never come my way, all the ideas that I would have abandoned before even trying, and how much of my life I would have slept through or numbed through, and all the things I would have kept putting up with, even though they were making me deeply unhappy. After I quit drinking, I shed a few relationships that I had outgrown. And I deepened my relationships with people whose company I enjoyed sober. Turns out, with the right people, you don't need to drink to feel close, or to allow yourself to be vulnerable, or to laugh hysterically at something very silly. I started running and taking better care of my body. At some point, I became a morning person and actually started loving being up early while the rest of the world is still sleeping. This one still blows my mind because I used to think of myself as an incurable night owl. I used to say that I hate mornings, but it turns out I just hated hangovers. I actually love mornings. And I want to pause here and say that you don't have to do any of these things when you get sober. Becoming a runner is optional, and so is training as a hypnotist, I promise. The point isn't about the specific changes you can make, but about all the possibilities that open up when you get sober. And finally, I want to talk about the biggest gift of sobriety, which has made everything else possible, and that is a better relationship with myself. I used to be a real bully to myself. I was so disappointed in my choices, and I thought that the way out of that was to punish myself and to be mean to myself, like that would somehow motivate me to do better. But it just made me hate myself even more, and ironically, that kept me drinking because I was trying to escape myself. But once I got sober, I had to do the work of actually getting to know myself and to figure out what I really like and what I'm genuinely interested in and what I want my life to look like, what I want to spend my time doing, and with whom. And as I learned to take better care of myself and to be kinder to myself and more compassionate and patient and supportive, it's amazing how much further that got me. I gained my self-trust back. Again, amazing how, when you start doing the things you said you would do, how that helps you to build your self-confidence. And right on the heels of that is self-respect, which I had none of as a drinker. But when you start doing the work and building the skills and building resilience in yourself, and when you see the successes you are creating, when you start to notice the results adding up, you raise your standards too. If you stop treating yourself and your body in a way that leaves you feeling terrible, you start to notice where else in your life you have allowed other people to treat you in a way that makes you feel terrible. So you start setting boundaries. You realize there are things that you no longer want to tolerate. And when you stop settling, your life keeps getting better. Looking back now, what is striking to me is that none of these things I've just listed were my goals when I started doing this work. I wasn't trying to become a coach or to run 10K or to complete a poetry manuscript. I was just trying to stop feeling terrible all the time. But once alcohol was no longer taking up so much space in my life, there was room for all sorts of things that I couldn't have imagined. If you're listening to all of this and thinking that this all sounds really far away from where you currently are, I get it. But remember, I am 2,000 days in, and actually a lot more days in if you count from when I first started trying to moderate, and it's been even longer if you count from the first time I ever thought that I'm drinking too much and I really need to do something about it. But remember this, every decision counts. One sober day doesn't feel dramatic. Neither does a week sober or even a sober month. Doesn't sound like very much. But all those days add up. All the moments of every single day add up. Every time you pause before a drink, every time you ask yourself what that drink represents, every time you slow down and actually taste what's in your glass instead of drinking on autopilot, every time you choose a non-alcoholic drink, every time you say no thank you, every time your head hits the pillow sober, every time you wake up with a clear head, all of that adds up. It's like compound interest. A tiny investment today accumulates a huge profit down the line. And if you keep making tiny investments, one choice at a time, you might be shocked what becomes possible. Play with me for a moment. Cast your mind into the future and ask yourself, 3 months from now, what do you want your life to look like? And what about 6 months from now? What about 5 years from now? How do you want to feel when you wake up? What do you want your relationships to look like? How do you want to be spending your time? What kind of person do you want to be? And the most important question of all, the way that you're living right now, is that helping you to move towards that future or away from it? We often overestimate what we can achieve in a day, but we massively underestimate what we can achieve over a longer period of time. Taking a night off drinking tonight might not feel groundbreaking, to the point that you might even think it won't make any difference if you have one sober night this week, but you keep drinking the other 6 nights. But over time, that one sober night might turn into 2 sober nights per week, and then 3. And after a few months down the line, you might find yourself drinking only very occasionally. That's how I started, actually. At first, I could only manage the occasional night without wine. But gradually, I was only drinking about half the days in the week. And then it was only 2 or 3 drinking nights in the whole month. And that's when I realized, if I can go a couple of weeks at a time without drinking, why am I still drinking at all? And that's when I stopped completely. And I want you to listen very carefully to this next part. Back when I started, on that day when I downloaded my first app to count sober days, I didn't feel remotely ready. I didn't feel confident that I could actually control my drinking. Quite the opposite. I felt lost and weak, and I was really scared that I was going to fail. But I had reached the point where I knew that I at least had to try, because I didn't want to keep living the way I was living. This is my plea for you. Don't wait to feel ready or more motivated, and don't wait for life to calm down. Today is the easiest it's going to be to say no to alcohol. There are always reasons to delay doing the work. You might think it will be easier after the holiday, after the work deadline, after the kids are off to summer camp, after you have found a new job, after you've started going to the gym. But the sooner you start, the faster you'll get there. So start today. Back on that first day, I wasn't trying to get to 2,000 sober days. I was just hoping to get through that night. And back then, I thought sobriety meant giving something up. What I didn't realize was that sobriety was going to give me access to so much more of my life. This is how you build a life that you don't need to drink to escape, one choice at a time. And wherever you are on your journey, I want you to think about the choices you're making. Not just about your drinking, but about your life. Because changing your relationship with alcohol isn't just about stopping drinking. It's about feeling good in your own skin, having a better relationship with yourself, and building a life that is healthy and joyful and rewarding, whatever that looks like for you. This is the work I do with my clients every day. We don't just work on drinking less. We work on building self-trust, confidence, resilience, and building a future that you're excited to wake up to. And I would love to help you build that too. Book a free consultation via the show notes, and let's do this. Not tomorrow, not next week. Let's start today. Thank you for listening, my friends, and I'll talk to you next week.